The Taliban have advanced to the gates of the Afghan capital, Kabul. Sources say the insurgents have pushed into the outskirts, but a Taliban spokesperson said the militants have been ordered not to enter the city. It is a breathtaking development coming just over a week after the Taliban launched a lightning-speed advance across the country. Helicopters have been landing at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul as Washington and other Western governments scramble to evacuate diplomatic staff. A tweet from the Afghan presidential palace said gunfire had been heard in several locations around Kabul, but that security forces, in coordination with international partners, remained in control of the city. Well, journalist Franz Marty is in the Afghan capital, Kabul, and he joins us now for the very latest. So, Franz, we're hearing the reports that the Taliban have entered Kabul's outskirts, but also that its fighters have been instructed not to take the city by force. What are you hearing?
Yes, there have been reports that they entered the city. It's really hard to verify. Probably they have in some parts in the outskirts, and this then created a panic and led to reports that they enter from everywhere, which doesn't seem to be true. Taliban spokesman, as was said in your report, said that they were ordered to remain outside the city. The latest is now that the interior minister of the Afghan government has said that there won't be an attack on Kabul and that there will be a negotiated surrender. And there are now rumors that Mullah Baradar, the leader of the Taliban political office, is heading to Kabul. So it seems that there will be a negotiated surrender and not a forceful takeover.
And yet it was just yesterday that Afghan President Ashraf Ghani addressed the nation and he promised to remobilize government forces. Have you seen any evidence of preparations by the Afghan military to defend Kabul?
There have been reports that some people were recruited. Yesterday evening, a well-known general was appointed to lead the defense of Kabul. Whether there have been practical preparation, it's hard to tell. Ghani's statement yesterday seemed already then detached from reality, as it was hard to imagine how, given the last few days, how the security forces would be able to make a last stand after they literally before did mostly nothing and let just cities fall, so that this would be a U-turn and all of a sudden they would be able to defend Kabul full-fledgedly was already questionable yesterday.
Well, it is looking increasingly likely that it's just a matter of time that the Taliban will manage to seize control of Kabul and then effectively of the entire country. So once that does happen, how do you expect the Taliban to govern Afghanistan? I mean, do we have to expect a return to the same kind of oppressive and brutal rule we saw in the past?
The thing is this, the Taliban have, despite being engaged in negotiations with the United States and then later the Afghan government, the Taliban have been very consistent. They have never compromised much. So they've always said they want an Islamic system, and read between the lines, it is more or less that they will call the shots what is Islamic and what is un-Islamic. So they have since years said they want to take full power and implement their vision of Islam. So we have to expect something akin to the former Taliban emirate. The Taliban have become more media savvy. Also during the past week, it was shown that they showed clemency to surrendering forces. This will probably continue, but the Taliban will become all of a sudden liberal. That's not going to happen. So it will be akin to what happened before, maybe with a better PR face and a little bit softer, so to speak.
We have also seen little or even no resistance to Taliban forces seizing many of the provincial capitals. Now, is this because of their superior military might, or does the Taliban actually have support among the Afghan population?
The Taliban have some support amongst the Afghan population. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to sustain this insurgency. How much is difficult to tell. In my opinion, but this is just a guess, most people are not very supportive of the Taliban, but they're they're also not supportive of the government. And what happened, what like facilitated this collapse was less that I would say less that the people switched side to the Taliban, but more that they lost confidence in the current government and thought that the government is lost, and then inevitably the Taliban will take over. And the more that then provinces surrendered, the more this kind of momentum accelerated, and the dominoes began to fall. Now it's more or less game over.
Journalist Franz Marty speaking to us from Kabul. We appreciate your reporting. Thank you. Well, for Germany's perspective on all of these developments in Afghanistan, I'm now joined in the studio by DW's political correspondent, Emmanuel Chez. So hello to you, Emma. Have there been any official reactions from the German government to the events of today in Afghanistan?
Well, there's been a reaction actually yesterday from Foreign Minister Heiko Maas to the general situation in Afghanistan. He said two things that I would like to mention here. He said that first, Germany would not allow its citizens to fall into the hands of the Taliban. And should the Taliban come to power in Afghanistan, well, Germany will seize all financial aid it had been provided Afghanistan with for years. This is 430 million euros per year that goes into also humanitarian aid, financial aid for the reconstruction of the country. So that would be a severe blow also to the Afghan population. And of course, the priority right now for Germany is to evacuate German people still in Afghanistan, as well as local staff. And there's been a lot of critics against the government for not doing it sooner.
Right, so now we are hearing reports that the German military is planning to evacuate German nationals beginning on Monday. What can you tell us about those plans?
Exactly. So first, it wasn't clear whether charter flights or military flights would repatriate people still in Afghanistan, Germans still in Afghanistan. Apparently now, starting on Monday, military planes would actually bring people, embassy personnel, around 20 people, as well as local staff. That will be around 300 people, first to Tashkent in Uzbekistan, then back to Germany, as well as 100 German nationals who are still in Afghanistan at the moment. And so far, there's around 800 local staff already repatriated in Germany, with the Interior Ministry saying that there was no time for for bureaucracy right now, and that a visa will be issued when those people come out of the plane in Germany.
Now, Emma, Germany was, of course, part of the NATO-led mission in Afghanistan. It deployed soldiers there back in 2002, and over the past 19 years, the German army actually suffered more fatalities than in any other deployment abroad since the Second World War. How do Germans view, then, the withdrawal of the Bundeswehr from Afghanistan in light of the developments that we're seeing with the Taliban seizing control?
Well, you mentioned the death toll for the German army. 59 soldiers lost their lives in Afghanistan, and the last 570 soldiers were repatriated back in June. And for many German veterans, there's a feeling of helplessness and also many interrogations as to what will become of the Afghan people, and also of all the local staff which have helped the German army while they were on the ground. There's also a feeling of perhaps their engagement in Afghanistan not having, helped for much. It's also, we also have to keep in mind that there are so many Afghans who live in Germany at the moment. 270,000 Afghans are here. 30,000 were facing deportation. Those deportations have been temporarily halted on Wednesday. So in the German population, there's a lot of interrogations as to which role Germany played in Afghanistan and was it worth it?
DW political correspondent Emmanuel Chez, thank you so much. Well, we'll have more analysis coming up, but first, here's a look at the city of Jalalabad, which fell to the Taliban earlier on Sunday.
The streets of Jalalabad, Afghanistan's eastern gateway. Normally a hive of activity. Now people just wait, apprehensively. On Sunday morning, residents awoke to find the city in the hands of the Taliban. There was no fighting, no resistance. Those soldiers of the Afghan National Army who haven't fled gave up their arms in return for letters of amnesty from Taliban commanders, just as in Herat and other towns. I was a member of the Afghan forces in the Zafar Corps. Then I was surrounded by the Taliban, and now I've come here to get an amnesty letter so I can leave the city and find somewhere safe to stay. The capital, Kabul, is the last major urban area under government control. The city appears calm, but hundreds of people are hurriedly trying to withdraw their life savings. Amongst the fear and resignation, there's also defiance.
They are here. I'm not afraid of them. We are not the people who will, go back to the dark era. I'm a girl and I don't care about anyone. Not Pakistan, not America, nobody else. I'm here even today. If they kill me, if they identify me, I will not care about them. I will not care about them. What should I be scared of? This is my homeland, my land.
President Ashraf Ghani, who on Saturday spoke to the nation for the first time since the Taliban offensive began, appears increasingly isolated. Warlords he negotiated with just days ago have surrendered to the Taliban or fled, leaving Ghani without a military option and with no negotiating power. As government control collapses, the US military has sent helicopters to Kabul to extract embassy staff and locals who worked with the Americans and who now fear bloody reprisals.
Well, for some analysis, we can speak to Markus Keim. He is from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you so much for being on our program. So, after nearly 20 years of war, NATO and U.S. troops are leaving Afghanistan behind largely as they found it. Is what we're seeing now in Kabul an unavoidable result?
It is the unavoidable result of a major decision taken by President Biden in April to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan unconditionally. And that's the major difference to his predecessor, Donald Trump, who was already negotiating the withdrawal of U.S. troops. Now it's unconditional in political terms, unconditional in military terms. And that has given tremendous power to the Taliban and led to the major withdrawal of all NATO forces. And what we see happening in these days and weeks is the result of the US policy decision taken in April, which reflects a major disappointment with what has been accomplished in Afghanistan over the last 20 years in terms of security and good governance.
So what then was Germany hoping to achieve when it joined the US-led NATO mission in Afghanistan?
I think the three German goals are quite easy to identify. The first one has been to express solidarity after the attacks of 9/11, and that has been the major foreign policy goal of this endeavor. And with this, Germany has been quite successful. If you talk to people in the United States, it's well recognized that Germany participated for 20 years in this difficult mission. The second goal is to contribute to contribute to counterterrorism, to fight Al-Qaeda. That has been accomplished. The second goal has been accomplished to a certain degree. Al-Qaeda still exists, but it's not capable to perpetrate major attacks in Western capitals. But the third goal has not been accomplished: to build up robust, effective security forces in Afghanistan, which are capable to cope with the Taliban. We have focused on the numbers. That we have 350,000 soldiers and policemen. We're focused on the degree of their training and the quality of their equipment. But at the end of the day, it was a political decision to withdraw all forces for political reasons.
And now, will these developments in Afghanistan, clearly the strategic goal, have not been met? Will it make Germany less likely to join allies in other foreign deployments in the future?
Absolutely. I think no major international organization, be it the European Union or be it NATO, will take over any kind of major, large-scale stability operation like Afghanistan anytime soon. There's no political appetite. And if you talk to people here in Berlin, you hear exactly the same tone. After the difficult and disappointing experience about what has been accomplished in Afghanistan after 20 years, after the huge financial investments, after the huge military investments, after the blood which has been shed in Afghanistan, everybody's so disappointed what has been accomplished. I think there's a major decision not to get involved in any of these kinds of missions soon.
Markus Keim from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's get the view from the United States now. And for that, DW correspondent Stefan Simons joins us now from Washington, D.C. Hello to you, Stefan. I know it's a bit early in Washington where you are, but has there been an official reaction yet on what has been happening in Kabul?
No, there has not. I'm afraid I can't give you that so far. Let's wait a few more hours. As you see in the background, the lights are off inside the White House, so there is, at least for us, to see no activity yet. Speaking of any reactions from the White House, from this administration, from the Biden administration on the latest developments in Kabul and regarding the Taliban's on march or onslaught towards the capital of Afghanistan, nor has there been any reaction today or this early morning on a Sunday here in the United States from the other side of the political spectrum, speaking the GOP or the Republicans. So no reactions yet, but they will come in the next few hours, that is for sure.
Well, all of this week, the Taliban have been seizing control of one provincial capital after another in Afghanistan, and seemingly without much resistance. Many governments around the world appeared to be very surprised by this. Was the U.S. also surprised?
I think it's fair to say that they were. We heard just a few days ago military or intelligence assessments which said, like, oh, the Taliban are marching towards Kabul. Yes, that's true. But 20 years of investment, hundreds of billions of dollars into their military apparatus as well in command structure. The latest military gear made in USA in the hands of Afghan national security forces that should bring the Taliban not right now within 24 or 48 hours to the doorstep of Kabul, but it should take between 30 and 90 days, so a month or 3 months. So obviously that didn't turn out. Yesterday, you see, yesterday on Saturday was a good indicator that the president ordered more troops into Afghanistan to the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul. Now there are 5,000 troops there, and it was supposed to be 3,000 or 3,500 before that. So rapid increase of more troops helping with the evacuation of U.S. personnel in the U.S. embassy. That was an indicator that the Taliban are actually almost like in a I don't know, have the words, other words for like almost like a blitzkrieg tempo marching towards Kabul. This was, I think, a surprise even for U.S. intelligence and military. And now, yesterday, if you give me the time to just let me mention that, yesterday there were some opposing voices out here in Washington saying like, okay, where was the planning of the administration for this? You know, military, they have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and then they all go out of the window, and then there's a plan D for everything, which happens then. At least that's what the military said. So there is questions if those plans existed and if the administration really was prepared to something like this, a scenario like we have now.
All right, DW correspondent Stefan Simons reporting from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much.